I've decided to do What is Difference project on gender roles. I've never really been interested in this topic before. However, this summer, every time you give a minute article or I've read in the textbook, I've been super interested in this. I don't really know that much about it, and um, that's why I think it's been interesting me a lot, just because I don't really have any background knowledge over it and I never really paid attention to it before. So I'm actually thinking about doing my analysis paper over this just because I can go more in depth, and now that I've actually researched about it, it's been drawing my attention a little bit more. So I'm actually super excited. Something crazy to me, I think it's crazy that media still follows traditional roles. When you look at commercials, television shows, magazines, etc., you see women still playing the part of cooking, cleaning, being the caregiver, the stay at home mom, while the men go out to work and financially support the family, which is fine. I just think it's weird how much we have progressed throughout the years and media still portrays us the same way as it did years ago. And just the way that traditional roles have still played a part in today's society um, is just crazy to me. And even how we're still adhering to it, even though things are different. Um, Although, even when we were children, there were still gender roles that were coming into play. When you think of a little girl, you think of someone as playing with pink toys and playing dress up and doing their hair, makeup, and being the stereotypical girl. And when you think about little boy, you think of some um, little boy playing in mud and playing with monster trucks, wearing blue or camouflage, and you just have these stereotypes that have been preconceived by different stereotypes and different people, and from media and just the way you were grew up, um, which I think it's weird. I think it's weird that children can already have stereotypes linked to them just based on gender by the time they're born, just based on their sex, race, culture, different aspects such as those. However, when gender roles are challenged, it becomes a problem for many people, whether it be parents or outsiders or whoever. I remember me being a little girl. I was playing with one of my younger cousins, and we were about 5 or 6, and I was a stereotypical little girl, and I wanted to play dress up. And I remember I had this play wedding dress, and I wanted to dress my little boy cousin in the dress. And so I ended up dressing him up. I put makeup on him, and we were having a good time. And I remember my uncle, well, his dad coming in and throwing this huge fiasco over his son wearing a dress and playing with makeup, which I didn't understand at the moment what was happening because I was young. I thought we were just having fun. However, in the adult perception, he just saw as a little boy playing with makeup and wearing a dress, which I don't necessarily find right considering we're now in the 21st century. And I don't think gender roles should even be considered as a child. Not only should they not be considered, children don't know what they are. So when you tell a little girl that she can't go play with a monster truck, or you tell a boy he can't play with makeup, you're ultimately strengthening stereotypes that are already existing that needs to be taken away. Um, I just don't find it right. However, I don't disagree with people accepting gender roles. For example, men have always had an idea that not only men, media has presented the idea that men should be doctors and lawyers and such, and women should play teachers and nurses. And when people can't accept those, when they're challenged, it becomes a problem as the same way as it does when you're a child. Um, there's many times when women are turned away from male patients when they're doctors just because they don't want a woman operating on them. And the same way, if I had a child and my child wanted a male teacher, I wouldn't turn them away just because they weren't a female. Um, However, it's not just narrowed down to gender. It's people who practice different sexual preferences, races, culture, ethnicities, and it's sad that people cannot overlook stereotypes that have been created just by media and stereotypes that have been around for years, especially in life or death situations. If I don't understand why gender even matters at that point, but it does to many people just because of preconceived knowledge from media and advertisements and television shows. And I don't understand it. And especially it's sad that children are still growing up in this stereotypical world that isn't even accurate anymore. Women have come such a long ways and progressed throughout the years in academics, political platforms, social, economic developments, and all sorts of things. And they're not being represented accurately within media, which has ultimately caused a problem in gender roles and sex representations throughout the world. Um, I don't know. I just don't find it right that we're not represented with media the same way that we should be and how we are in real life. Women have done more or the same as men have, and they're not represented the same way, and they're not seen as dominant as men are, even though we're doing the same things just because we're undermined by our gender. um, I have gathered 5 articles. I've tried to summarize them the best I can. I'll give you the short and sweet version so you're not listening to my voice all night. The first one is a heavily discussed topic. It's gender differences in video games. Um, it's specifically called Gender Differences in Video Games Character, Roles, Appearances, and Attire. It ultimately compares men and females' physical attributes and attire and stuff like that within video games and ultimately compares their efficiency. Um, For example, the findings supported that males outnumbered female characters. Males were more often playable characters compared to females. The males were more frequently the hero of the game and had more weapons and abilities compared to females. And the females were often sexualized and supplemental characters within the game. Um, in my personal opinion, this is why females do not partake in video games as much as men do, just because they can't identify with the characters in an accurate way anymore. Um, Men have grown up as thinking they were more dominant than females, just because that's what media has told them throughout their lives. And when they're playing video games, they're seeing that. They're seeing that they're more dominant and that they're better and that they're more efficient than females. However, when females get in front of the screen, they're seeing a girl in a revealing outfit and not winning against the male characters just because she is a female. And I think that's a problem considering children are playing these games and strengthening these stereotypes that we're putting out there for them. Especially since females can do just as much as men can, but they're not being represented in something as simple as a video game. I don't understand that. Um, Secondly, I found 2 articles that deal with body image issues. One dealing with men's issues and one dealing with women's body image issues. The women's, it's not going to shock you. I found one that was called The Influence of Fashion Magazines on the Body Image Satisfaction of College Women, an Exploratory Analysis. Um, it said that when looking at fashion magazines, women's dissatisfaction with the bodies increased, which is not shocking. Those articles have been around for years. Media has constantly played a part in what people have blamed media for playing a part in eating disorders, dissatisfaction within women's bodies and all sorts of things like that. So that's not really a shock. However, in the men article, which is called The Impact of Media Exposure on Male's Body Image, showed that when looking at a neutral stimuli, men were okay with their bodies. They were not dissatisfied any more than they would be by looking at something. However, when they were in an apparent stimuli analysis, they were more dissatisfied with their bodies and their muscle dissatisfaction and things of that sort. So the difference is with this, in my opinion, media has constantly developed an unrealistic body image ideal for women to adhere by throughout their lives, to where even in not looking at fashion magazines, women are still not fully satisfied with their bodies because media is constantly telling them that they are not good enough and that they should look and behave and eat and wear certain things when men are not held to the same standard of beauty as women are. So that's why men are not dissatisfied with their bodies even before looking at the stimuli. Which that's just my personal opinion. However, I think it's fair considering many past research. Um, the fourth article I found was named A Look at Character Attributes and Job Related Aspirations in Film and Television. This had to deal with looking at film and television and looking at male and females' occupations and career paths and comparing the two. This is kind of lengthy, so I'm going to try to shorten it as much as possible. It basically says the primetime shows display female characters as working less than their male counterparts. Of the total workforce shown, females comprise between a fifth and a third of those employed. But however, in the real world, 47% of the women are in the U.S. labor market. Therefore, media is purposely presenting women as not working as much as men. And however, when we're looking at media and we're looking at television and advertisements and we're reaching out to media, we're wanting to see a mirror of reality. However, we're not seeing that since media is showing that females are not working as much as men. However, in reality, we're making up about half of the workforce in the real world. And the fact that we're not being represented in that same way and we're not being shown in that same way makes us look less dominant than men still. And it's, again, strengthening these stereotypes. And it bothers me just because we're working just as hard, but we're not having that same representation as men. And the fifth reference that I wanted to point out was actually from the textbook. It's from one of the readings that you presented to us. I forgot what pages it was on, but it was about advertising and gender roles within advertisements and things of that sort. This is actually super interesting to me just because I'm a huge media fanatic. I love looking at social media. I love looking at magazines. I constantly surround myself with it all the time. It's not healthy, but I do it. So when I read this, it kind of bothered me just because I am a woman. I want to be independent. I want to stand on my own 2 feet by myself without a male backbone carrying me and supporting me. So the fact that media is representing these ideas to the world bothers me. It says the man of the couple is situated as upright, taller, stronger, richer, older, bolder, and colder. He is self-contained, stands firmly on the ground, and is often dressed in a business suit. However, the woman is usually glazed, unsteady. She appears accessible, and often the man is holding her up in some way that constrains her or supports her, and she is represented as socially powerless, which, however, I don't find right. I don't want to be perceived as helpless or useless or socially powerless within my own world. I feel like media has shown that men are constantly more dominant than women, when in reality, we're not in traditional roles anymore. Um, I want to be able to support myself and be independent, and I want to keep on growing and progressing, but I feel like media is constantly holding us back and creating these stereotypes and keep on pressing these social norms. And I don't find that fair, considering men are represented in such better light than women are nowadays. I want to continue to grow and progress, and I don't feel like I am anymore because media has constantly given people traditional roles to abide by. Um, this project has honestly opened my eyes in many ways, considering I want to learn more and I want to continue to try to fight these stereotypes. Um, I really appreciate you assigning these projects to us, and I'm hoping to gain more knowledge about this, and I want to do my analysis paper over it because I'm genuinely interested, and I'm hoping to just learn more and go more in depth about this. And yeah, well, I think that basically wraps everything up, but thank you for listening, and I hope you're having a good day. So yeah, bye.